where the picture stays pretty unsettled.
At a time when drug and alcohol deaths are soaring, I'm in Birkenhead, one place that's been hard hit, discovering the innovative ways they have to help addicts.
It's not just another person that's coming in, it's an individual, and we're there to support that person.
For a year now, I've been following Mike as he battles to stay clean.
There's a lot of things alcohol and drugs strip me of. There's a lot of things that I am rebuilding.
Join me, Jeremy Cook, for Addiction, The Road to Recovery, today at 1:30 on the BBC News Channel.
Hello, good afternoon. As Russian troops intensify their attacks in the Donbas region in eastern Ukraine, the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss says she wants modern weapons to be sent to Moldova to prevent it being attacked by Russian forces. The country lies on the border with Ukraine and there are concerns it could become Russia's next target. This report from our correspondent Richard Galpin contains some flashing images.
The Russian armed forces are now intensifying attacks in the eastern Donbas region of Ukraine. And they've made advances after heavy bombardment of Ukrainian positions. And now there are concerns the Russians could turn their attention to another country, Moldova, which used to be part of the Soviet Union. It's not a member of NATO, so isn't protected from Russian aggression. It lies between Romania and Ukraine, and within it is the Russian-backed separatist region of Transnistria. A month ago, there was a series of explosions in the area, raising concerns the war could widen. Today, the British Foreign Secretary Liz Truss made clear there is a serious threat, which she says Russia trying to restore what's described as Greater Russia. In another move indicating how far Russia will go in destabilising countries, it's now been revealed that Moscow has cut gas supplies to Finland, the country one of several now hoping to join NATO. Meanwhile, President Biden, currently on a visit to South Korea, has spoken of the need for a global response to the war started by the Kremlin.
Putin's war against Ukraine isn't just a matter for Europe. It's an attack on democracy and the core international principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And the Republic of Korea and the United States are standing together, part of a global response with our allies and partners around the world.
This morning, Moscow announced that President Biden, US Secretary of State Blinken, and CIA Chief William Burns have all been banned from entering Russia. Richard Galpin, BBC News.
Let's assess the situation inside Ukraine now with James Waterhouse, who's in the capital, Kyiv. James, while Russia is intensifying its activity in the east, Volodymyr Zelensky is saying that diplomacy is the only solution to this war. So what can we read into his comments?
I think right now, Annita, that is the most likely outcome, because the other alternatives are a change of heart or even a change of leadership in Russia, which is far less likely. And Volodymyr Zelensky has made it clear, to be frank, that he doesn't have the means as it stands to push the Russians back, which is why he's urging people to stay cautious about the eventual outcome. Nor, though, are there any signs of the Ukrainian resistance easing in any way. So it is going to rely on a peace deal, I think, at this moment in time. The Donbas in the east is still the Russians' priority, and we're hearing from Ukrainian forces that they are throwing everything at the Luhansk region, possibly because of their increased movement now that the city of Mariupol has fallen.
James, thank you very much. James Waterhouse. President Biden and his South Korean counterpart have agreed to hold larger military drills and deploy more US weapons if necessary to deter North Korea. Mr. Biden, who's on his first visit to Asia as president, also said he was open to discussions with North Korea. Our Seoul correspondent Jean McKenzie joins us now. So, Jean, how significant are these talks?
Well, the focus of this trip and these talks was supposed to be on how these two countries could work more closely together to combat China's growing dominance in Asia. But as is often the case, North Korea has managed to dominate because intelligence over the last few days has shown that North Korea is getting ready to test a major missile or even a nuclear weapon. So today the two presidents took the opportunity to urge Kim Jong-un to come back to the negotiating table. They said that they were ready and willing to talk to him. But this is nothing new. They've been saying this for years, and Kim Jong-un has refused to engage, and instead he's continued building up his nuclear weapons. What was particularly significant about today is how much emphasis the two leaders put on getting ready to prepare for an attack by the North. So they agreed that they are going to increase their military exercises. They also, the United States, said it was prepared to send more weapons to South Korea if they were needed. So clearly their hopes of achieving a breakthrough here are not particularly high.
Jean, thank you very much. Jean McKenzie in Seoul. Here, opposition parties are demanding that the Prime Minister explains a meeting with the senior civil servant, Sue Gray, over her report into parties held in Downing Street during lockdown. It's emerged the pair met several weeks ago, but there are conflicting accounts of what was discussed. Our political correspondent, Jonathan Blake, is here. So, Jonathan, what can you tell us about this meeting and these different accounts?
Well, the Prime Minister and Sue Gray met, but exactly when, what was discussed and who arranged it is less clear. Why that's important in a second. Downing Street confirmed the meeting, and we were told by a senior source in Number 10 last night that it was arranged at Sue Gray's request and that practical and process issues were discussed, such as whether photos would be included as evidence when her report was published. But a spokesperson for the Sue Gray investigation has disputed that account, and we're told photos weren't in fact discussed and that it was a senior official in Number 10 that first suggested Sue Gray might want to update the Prime Minister on her work. This matters, of course, because it's hugely sensitive for the Prime Minister to meet Sue Gray, the person tasked with investigating him and everyone working under him in government for breaking lockdown laws. That's why Downing Street is at pains to avoid any suggestion the Prime Minister summoned her or that they have any influence over the process. And it's also why Labour are calling for an urgent explanation.
Jonathan, thank you very much. Pharmacists are to be given more flexibility to deal with shortages of hormone replacement therapy medicines. They'll be given temporary powers to exchange certain HRT drugs without a new prescription. Matt Graveling reports.
So I can get tired. I didn't used to get tired. I've always had quite a lot of energy. It can make you feel anxious when you would never normally get anxiety. So you can feel worried about things that are really silly and not understand why.
Just two symptoms of the menopause experienced by Yasmin, who got her life back on track by treating them with hormone replacement therapy, or HRT. But for Yasmin, like many others, a recent lack of supply has led to frustration and a return of symptoms.
A lot of admin, life admin goes into trying to work out and organise trying to get medication and going between different pharmacies, talking to a GP, having to phone a GP all the time, having to try and source them.
The government have brought in two big changes to try and tackle the shortage of HRT. The first is to limit supply to 3 months at a time. The second is to give pharmacists the power to slightly change prescriptions. So if they're out of stock of one item, they can change it for something similar.
There are risks for women who are either coming off HRT or changing HRT. And very often, even if you give a woman the same product, but it's made by a different manufacturer, they will notice a difference in how their symptoms are being managed. So it's not the ideal solution, but it's certainly helping us get medicine out to women who are currently struggling to get those products.
Experts say anyone who has questions or concerns about HRT should speak to their pharmacist or doctor. Matt Graveling, BBC News.
In Australia, projections suggest the opposition Labour Party has defeated Prime Minister Scott Morrison's coalition in the general election. It's the first time voters have gone to the polls there since 2019. Our correspondent Shaima Khalil is at the Labour Party HQ in Sydney. Shaima, bring us right up to date with what's happening.
Well, I think you can probably hear how it's going here at Labour HQ in central Sydney. The mood is one of celebration, of confidence, and of really hoping that this is going to be their night. The projections as they stand is that the Liberals are out and that the Labour Party is in for the first time in 9 years. Now, what's still unknown is whether Anthony Albanese, the leader of the Labour Party, is going to form a minority government or a majority government. Now, in case they don't get a majority and they have to form a coalition, the likely candidates are going to be the independents, the newly elected independents, and the Greens. They have done so well in this election, the independents. They have challenged safe government seats and they have won them. And that really tells you a story here in this election. A, that these are female candidates in a country where politics is seen as very toxic for women, and that people have turned their back on major parties, especially on the governing Liberals.
Shaima, thank you very much. Shaima Khalil in Sydney. With all the sport now, here's Ollie Foster at the BBC Sports Centre. Hi, Ollie.
To you, Annita. The Scottish Cup final kicks off in just under 2 hours' time. Rangers facing Hearts at Hampden Park. Jane Dougal is there for us. Jane, Rangers looking to lift that trophy for a 34th time, but I guess a lot's going to depend on how they respond to that crushing defeat in the Europa League final a couple of days ago.
Yes, Ollie, Wednesday night was a huge blow for Rangers. After playing for 120 minutes in the searing Seville heat, they lost on penalties to Eintracht Frankfurt. And yes, to pick themselves up from that physically and mentally is going to be a huge challenge, and especially to do it in time to play in this Scottish Cup final. But don't forget, Rangers also narrowly lost out on winning the league to their bitter rivals Celtic, so they will want to finish this season with some silverware. Hearts, on the other hand, will want Rangers to have tired and heavy legs for this final. But regardless of that, Hearts have had a very impressive season under their manager Robbie Neilson. They finished third in the league, and that was just after being promoted, and of course they've made it here to the Scottish Cup final. It's been 10 years since Hearts won the trophy. It's been 13 years since Rangers won it, so both definitely looking to win this trophy. Preparations are well underway. It's going to be an exciting afternoon.
Jane Dougal, many thanks indeed. Rory McIlroy says he's still in contention at the US PGA Championship, despite slipping from the top of the leaderboard. He's fifth at the halfway stage. 5 strokes behind the American Will Zalatoris. He fired a bogey-free round of 65 to lead the second men's major of the year on 9 under par. Qualifying for tomorrow's Spanish Grand Prix is later this afternoon. Final practice session has just finished in Barcelona. Championship leader Charles Leclerc was quickest in his Ferrari ahead of Red Bull's Max Verstappen. It was an improved performance from the Mercedes, though. Third and fourth fastest, although Lewis Hamilton was again slower than his teammate George Russell. That's all the sport. Busy afternoon. You can follow it all on the BBC Sport website.
Thanks, Ollie. And you can see more on all of today's stories on the BBC News channel. The next news on BBC One is at 21 minutes past 6. Bye for now.